Welcome into another episode of the News4JAGs podcast. I'm Jamal St. Cyr alongside Justin Barney. All right, we did one of these earlier this week.
Yep.
We were talking a little draft, but Jaguars decided they wanted to keep everybody on their toes. Finally got the deal done. Josh Allen signs a mega contract.
I'm going to raise my hand real quick. Now, I will say, I called this. I called it. Jamal, you and I, last few days ago?
Okay.
Maybe last week, didn't you say you didn't think it would happen? Didn't you say he was going to play the year on the tag?
I have said that before.
Okay, all right.
That was never a shot at Josh Allen. That was because of my lack of faith of the Jaguars front office to get the deal done. Different things. Look, I think hands off. I think Josh Allen earned it. I think they needed to sign him. I think that was the right move for the Jaguars. I just didn't have faith that the Jaguars would get the deal done.
You would not be misguided in that
because
the history, the track record for Jacksonville. I mean, and again, it's not Trent's guy, it's not Doug's guy. They didn't draft him, so I could see your point, but I just think Josh has been everything you've wanted him to be.
Yes,
drafted, developed, pillar of the community, great spokesperson for the team when things were going terrible. He's been a total company guy.
Yep.
And it just so happened that he produced the best season in franchise history from a pass rusher in a contract year. So he's everything you could have hoped for.
He did everything right. He did everything the team needed him to do. It's a good thing that they paid him. So this is a contract that makes him the third highest paid defensive player in the NFL. It also makes him one of the highest paid edge players. And that was where my doubt was. I knew his camp would want something in that realm, something like that, because that's what he'd get on the open market. I just was hesitant to think Trent Baalke was going to hand out that sort of payday.
Kudos to Josh's team.
Yeah, they got it done.
For kind of sticking it out. You could have probably signed even before the season last year. I'm sure there was some contract discussion there, maybe a low-ball contract offer in a sense to Josh, but he played out on that fifth-year option, and, man, he performed. Kudos to his management, representation, and the Jaguars for getting it done. Jaguars probably would have liked to have got it done a year ago. Would have saved him a little bit of money. But, man, Josh certainly deserved it. You heard in his voice at the presser just how important it was. I mean, this seismic, life-changing money for Josh Allen and his family. I think you had a chance to hear that this week, too.
Yeah, look, and we got a little bit of sound from Josh Allen because, and I think I picked this bite out because – there's always that worry from front offices. What happens when you hand out these contracts? Some guys change for the worse. They get the money. They don't have to worry about it. This is a huge investment. I mean, it's an investment just like in any other business when they do something of this nature. The Jaguars have made a huge investment in Josh. They're betting on him not for what he's done previously, but for what he's going to do next. And Josh is clearly focused. I mean, he made it very clear, even borrowed maybe a line from Kobe Bryant in this whole thing because job's not finished.
Yeah, I'm very emotional right now, but the job's not done yet. And that's why I want to tell the fan base, I'm extremely blessed and honored to get this paycheck or to get these checks, but I have to, I still set goals for myself. Defensive Player of the Year is my next goal. Winning a Super Bowl, being the MVP of it. I told you I'm a legacy guy.
Josh talked a lot about wanting to leave a legacy here in Jacksonville. Boy, oh boy, would it be a legacy if he was one of the guys that helped win a Super Bowl and he was the defensive MVP for the Jaguars? I'm just saying. That'd be quite the legacy if he pulled that off.
Yeah, but, I mean, you remember when Josh was drafted. I think you got here right after.
I got here right after. I covered Josh as a rookie, but he was already drafted by the time I showed up.
But, even back then, going back to, I remember when he was drafted, certainly during OTAs and training camp rookie season, you got a chance to see kind of how just the embodiment. He was an old rookie in a sense from the wisdom, from the mentality. He's always felt like he's been a step ahead from that regard. He's always spoken very humbly and kind of with a little bit of wisdom to him. And he's been an old young guy in a sense. With age comes wisdom. And you've seen Josh grow mentally each year, and you've seen him just he knew he was going to have to become a leader early on in his career. He had Calais that first year. He had to become that leader by that year too. And he has just grown into that role, and he is the embodiment of what you want to see a guy get that big second contract. A great representation of Jacksonville, a voice in that locker room. It's really good to see Josh do that. And he just, to me, going back to that rookie year, he's just seemed very advanced for his age. And I think you even see that maturity even more so, talking about what that meant to his family and everything. So great for Josh, and a great ambassador and a good second contract for Josh. He played his ass off to get that contract. It's well deserved.
Look, Josh is one of the nicest guys on this Jaguars team. This guy signed life-changing money, life-changing contract, holding a press conference, and he starts things off by thanking everyone in the media for being there at the last minute because it was thrown together because he was doing the contract like that.
Now, if you remember when COVID happened and Jaguars were on Zoom all the time. Whenever Josh would get on Zoom, he would come around and he would say to every media member on the Zoom, say them by name. Hey, what are you drinking there? Oh, is that a coffee? What's in your coffee? I mean, he was very, very personable, knows how to work the room, but Josh is authentic. I mean, yesterday, you just mentioned how appreciative he is of everything, and I think him holding his emotions together, you could really feel that by seeing him. I mean, this guy is not from a position of arrogance. I mean, he really is empowered and really wants to leave his legacy, and he knows that legacy won't be complete without that playoff success and maybe a Lombardi trophy.
Hey, he is 10 sacks away from breaking the Tony Brackens' record as the franchise leader in sacks all time, so he could break that by the end of next season.
He could. Brackens one of my favorite draft picks of all time, and I remember back in the day, I used to work at a jet ski CD dealership, and Kevin Hardy and Tony Brackens came in as rookies and bought jet skis. So I got a chance to know both those guys back then, and so funny to see a Tony Brackens, who was like a 6'5", 240-pound edge rusher from Texas, out on a jet ski. And it's so funny. And Kevin Hardy, you know him, a big linebacker, number 2 pick in that 96 draft. And it was just interesting to see those guys. But Brackens was an unbelievable second-round pick out of Texas. Had a knee injury, ended up retiring early from that. But he was a rancher out in Texas, man. The guy roping cattle and stuff. One of my favorite draft picks of all time, Tony Brackens. And it's awesome to see Josh Allen right on that the heels of that all-time sack record.
We'll see if he can make history this season. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the training camp gets closer. But let's go from the signing to maybe back to the big picture. The Jaguars have had a fantastic offseason. Quietly. I know a lot of people around the NFL aren't giving them a whole lot of credit for what they've done, but they've had a very quality offseason. I mean, adding guys like Josh Allen on a long-term contract, you bring in Eric Armstead, who's a fantastic interior defensive lineman, along with your re-up Foyer, so that way you cleared some money there. You kind of at least held together the offensive line. I'm still skeptical on that whole thing, but you bring in Gabe Davis, who you like. Darnell Savage, clearly they have a plan for. They've done a good job of putting the pieces together on this defense. So I think there's something to be said there. The only blip is maybe the handling of the Josh Allen thing. Like the deal could have gotten done earlier, so that way you could franchise tag Calvin Ridley and keep him in Jacksonville, but you know what? Look, maybe some things just sometimes things just happen for a reason, and maybe he just was supposed to be somewhere else. Somebody else's problem now.
And really, I mean, I can't imagine there have been contracts that edge guys have signed since the Josh slap of that franchise tag, and those guys that helped reset the market. And then Josh's agents came along and said, "Oh, let's reset them."
Once Brian Burns got that contract, it was like, okay, Josh was like, look. And then to the Jaguars' credit, they got him just above Brian Burns, so that way he's getting paid more than him, just above it.
Yeah, hey, and things work out for a reason, and I am happier as an outside looking in person that you get that deal done with Josh early on enough. I mean, before the draft, before the second wave, where you could add potentially a T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk type of player. You get that franchise tag off the books because that's a $24 million slap on that franchise tag. You had no flexibility in that. You had no ability to spread that signing bonus out with the new contract. That gives Jacksonville a little bit more, actually a lot more flexibility heading into the draft, heading into that post-wave where you could explore a potential addition of another player. And I think that's great for the franchise and certainly gives Jacksonville, puts them in position to potentially add a little bit more. Again, T. Higgins, Ayuk, somebody else who's out there.
I'm so off the trade for the wide receiver bandwagon.
Oh, all right.
Here, look, you got to pay that guy the
Yeah,
second you
I
trade
agree.
for him. You have to
But
pay that guy the second you trade for him.
But-
and you already have a ton of money locked up in Evan Ingram
Yep.
and a ton of money locked up in Christian Kirk. And you're trying to figure out if you're going to re-up Trevor Lawrence either this year or next year, more than likely this year. And you want to pay another guy?
That's a fair point. But if you could say, hey, assigning a Brandon Ayuk or a T. Higgins, somebody in that realm of receiver, is going to guarantee you getting to the second round of the playoffs. Is that too much? If that's the missing piece that you determine in this team, do you make that deal?
They got to the second round of the playoffs without him.
Yeah, and they
lost.
You see what happened last year when you're missing your number one receiver in Christian Kirk, and you're missing guys like that.
Second round of the playoffs, like if that's as far as you're going to get, is the second round? I'm not doing the deal.
No, okay, all right.
The goal is a Super Bowl.
Goal's a Super Bowl.
If you're telling me that, like, if I can look into the crystal ball and I know the future, and you trade for Ayuk or Higgins and pay them, and the farthest you get is the second round of the playoffs, yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll pass on that every day of the week.
Okay.
That's a huge investment, and with so much money locked up already with some of those offensive playmakers, now you're going to start inhibiting yourself on some of the other moves you can make, and you're telling me that all it paid off was to get to the second round of the playoffs anyway. I'm good.
Yeah, didn't get there last year at 9-8 because
That's true.
Again, I see what you're saying. I brought this up not last time before. You got your receivers, and you got Christian, Zay, Gabe Davis.
Mm-hmm.
All those guys are imports. All those guys are paid free agent deals. So that's the guys. I mean, your money is tied up there. Evan Ingram, free agent import, big contract. At some point, you're going to have to draft a guy. And, they tried to hit that nail last year in the second round with Brenton Strange at tight end. Didn't quite work out. But you're going to need to invest in a receiver, in a tight end in the first or second round who can contribute there and be into that integration with those free agent acquisitions. And they've not done that. I mean, Jacksonville's success with drafting receivers historically has been terrible. I mean, terrible. Justin Blackmon, good player, didn't pan out. Marquise Lee, early round pick, did not pan out due to injuries. Allen Robinson panned out but left to free agency. Mm-hmm. So, again, you've got to address some of that. You can't always fill those needs especially at one position with free agent signees because, I mean, you're pinched long term. You've got to draft and develop well. And, again, that's something that Jacksonville has not done.
And you're going to give up draft resources to make this trade. They're not giving them away for free. And then you still have to hand out the big old contract.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to want a big old contract. As opposed to the spot where I am currently now.
All right, let's see.
With Josh Allen deal done, trade up.
I'm with you.
And go get Rome Odunze.
I'm with you.
Just trade up and go get him. Get it done. Get up to 8. Trade with the Falcons. And go get Rome Odunze.
I like where Jamal's head is at. That was my sales pitch last week,
That's
right?
where I'm at now.
Did I sell you on that?
It's grown on me.
All right.
It took a few sleeps. It's grown on me, maybe some. Look, the Josh Allen deal helps in a sense.
Absolutely.
It clears up some money to where you can do some things if you really wanted to. But the biggest thing is now he's a part of the long-term future. So now, like some of those picks where, like, I still think adding a Leatu Latu if they sat there at 17 isn't a deal breaker for me. Because you're looking at the AFC South and you're going to say, wow, we got to deal with C.J. Stroud for the next forever. How do you stop that guy? Get to him. So how do you get to him? With pass rushers.
Yeah.
So can you have too many pass rushers? No, you cannot.
No such thing.
So adding Leatu Latu at 17, before I talked about it and I said, he could be a replacement for Josh. And Josh is under contract long term. I'd lower him down my board some, but if I still landed and arrived and said the board fell where he's the best guy, I'd still add him. But I'm not saying sit at 17 at this point. At this point, I think that with Josh locked up long term, you've got your 2 edge guys. Go get your wide receiver.
Yeah.
Go get Rome Odunze. Figure out corner. Figure out corner. Corner's not a premium position. It's an important position, but it's not a premium position. We've had this talk.
Yep.
I mean, no matter find me a good corner that started on a team and ended on a team. Even Rasheed Mathis is from Jacksonville and left. Like they end up once teams start going into those team building and they start looking at contracts, The Kansas City Chiefs just did it with Snead.
Yep.
I mean, Jalen Ramsey, somehow I don't think the Dolphins are the last stop for Jalen, and he's going to go down. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So Darrelle Revis, same thing, hopped around. Deion Sanders, we can go through. There are very few corners that are really good that start and end in one spot.
I am on the train with you, Jamal. I'm glad you bought a ticket.
Yeah, I'm here now.
I do think, and when we made that sales pitch, Josh was not under long-term deal.
Nope.
And when you tag, and not saying Josh would have been this way, but when you tag a player, that's players hate being tagged.
100%,
Yeah, that's awesome money. Yeah, you're locked into, in Josh's case, $24 million, pretty darn good money.
Yep.
But players, you're talking $24 million franchise tag. That's all you're guaranteeing. I mean, say Josh blows his ankle or ACL out or something like that.
Right.
He's done. Yeah, you get $24 million, but $88 million guaranteed is what his long-term deal does. And that franchise tag, the thing that Jacksonville did not need was this Josh Allen situation to drag on until July 14th. And there's, the contentiousness and the agents publicly sniping and the team saying something. You did not need that for one of your quote-unquote cornerstones of your team, and I'm glad they got it done with Josh. So I know you prefaced your last week talking about the draft needs with, Josh not being on a long-term deal. So that's changed things considerably.
Yeah.
And I do think, Josh is going to be here 5 years, and Trayvon entering year 3. So you've got him 3 more years on a rookie deal in a sense.
Yep.
So that's good. And I don't think adding Leatu, whoever, pass rusher, that'd be fine too. I mean, imagine a defense with Leatu, Eric Armstead, Trayvon, Josh in that front, and then Devon Hamilton back at Devon Hamilton's strength.
Yep.
I mean, that's a pretty darn good defense right there, and you spot fill at cornerback. So to me, I am with you 100%. I mean, the sales pitch last week, get a receiver. I think they go up and get a receiver. I'm on the train with you.
I'm right there. I think we're at the point where it's go up and get your guy, call up the Falcons, get the deal done, move up and go get Rome. But if you sit at 17, I still am a BPA guy. Mm-hmm. I'm still best player available, and I'm not completely. There's one thing that I did want to mention that Josh said in his press conference that is part of maybe my pitch that an edge isn't out of the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. One thing that Josh mentioned was that part of Ryan Nielsen's defense, he thinks that Ryan likes to be able to move his best guy inside. We know Trayvon can move inside a little bit, and Josh said he's proven that he can move inside some too and stand up against an edge or against a guard. So who's on the edge if Josh or Trayvon's inside?
Yep.
Your third edge. Who's the Jaguars' third edge right now? I mean, Yasir Abdullah's a draft pick from last year. They brought in the Gibson guy from Chicago. He's from Tennessee, sorry.
You put Armstead at end and let him get in there in that mix?
Maybe
another big body in there to put on. I don't know. That's why I don't think the edge at all is out of the question. No. I mean, that flexibility right there. I mean, you add again a Leatu. I mean, Eric Armstead on the field at once. Trayvon. I mean, that is an unbelievable change on that defensive front from a year ago.
Yeah, we talk about C.J. Stroud's in the division. Oh, Anthony Richardson. Oh, Will Levis. That's all great and fine and dandy. If they don't have time to throw, So, edge should still be at least in the realm of conversation. But we're both firmly on the trade up and go get a Dunze. I was kind of doing some, and I like Malik Neighbors. I think we've talked about it here a few times where I said, look, don't count out Malik Neighbors as the guy everybody's throwing out a Dunze. And listening to the interview, I came in and I told Justin, I said, I was just listening to both of them talk, and I said,
it clicked.
Dunze is a Jaguar player. He is a Trent Baalke, Doug Peterson guy in personality type. In the person that he is. Malik Neighbors, nothing wrong there, but he didn't, like, listening to him just talk, didn't scream that at least the personality type that Doug and Trent have shown they want to put in the locker room.
Does it scare you that one played in the SEC, one played in whatever conference it is now, it's been dissipated, the former Pac-12?
I mean, not really. Just because Rome's done it, and he did it against some high-level competition too. Malik Neighbors, I feel like I'd be different on Malik if it was like sustained excellence too. Like Malik is good. Don't get me wrong. He is going to be fantastic, but I don't think I'm going to give him any extra points just because it was the SEC. I mean, he did what he did against the teams he played, and I think Rome Odunze was on a playoff team that played fantastic football. So look, I think that's plenty. If you can show up in the playoffs in college football, you did your thing.
Question 17. You got on the board.
All right.
Brian Thomas or Leatu.
Oh, that one's tough.
Who's your best player in that situation? They're both could be made for position of need as well.
So we've talked about Brian Thomas a little bit here on the podcast, and I like Brian Thomas. I do think he's going to be good. The better NFL player, in my opinion, is going to be Leatu Latu, though.
Okay. All right. You've been on the Leatu trains.
I think
for a while.
The only thing with Leatu, if Leatu doesn't have the medical red flags, I think this dude's a lock for the top 10. I mean, all he did was produce. He's fantastic. He went down to the Senior Bowl, and he did it again. I mean, look, the dude is good.
Yeah.
All he does is get after quarterbacks. I don't know what else you could want somebody to do. So, look, the medical red flag. That's the question. Some teams aren't going to have him on the board because he was medically retired.
Yep.
He was cleared to play at UCLA. He got checked at the combine. I haven't seen any leaks or reports about what they found or where they're at if he was completely cleared there. So that's the question with Leatu. He might not even be on the Jaguars board if the medical staff does not like him.
Remember the last guy from UCLA had medical red flags the Jaguars took.
Yeah, and he played.
He played well. Miles Jack had a condition that, Miles Jack on talent alone was probably a top 10 pick.
Yes.
And he fell down to the second round of the draft because he, in a sense, he even told a reporter out at a practice one day, he had an arthritic knee basically, and that could require microfracture surgery and and again, that was damaging pre-draft information. But again, Miles Jack ended up, he was one of those medically red flag guys, and he had a remarkable career in Jacksonville.
I mean,
got a second contract.
He did good things. So I think Leatu Latu is the better pick of those two, but I also will preface that by saying I do like Brian Thomas Jr., but if he's still on the board, I think Adonai Mitchell from Texas is a better player or going to be a better NFL player than Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I know he's been a favorite from some Jags fans and mock drafts as of late. I haven't really gotten on the Adonai at 17 train a ton.
Yeah, probably not at 17.
Yeah, I do think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. I'm just really hesitant for a wide receiver at 17 unless it is a guy I feel like is going to be elite, and I had to get him there. Just because this is a really good draft. Like at one point I wasn't on the Keon Coleman train, and then people kept plugging him, so I kept going back and looking, and I'm like, all right. And then he ran the slow 40 time. I was like, I really don't care now. I was like, perfect. So I can get him in the second round. All aboard.
He could be at 40. He could be there at 48.
He could be there at 48. So there are some really good receivers in this draft that you're going to be able to get later. Now, with that said, all of them aren't going to be superstars, and there are going to be misses.
And I think the top three guys are
safe.
The consensus are pretty much these guys are going to be alphas.
Right. They're locked. They're going to probably be wide receiver ones or however you want to do it, look at it in the NFL. And if you can go and get a Rome Odunze and add him to your wide receiver group, there is a sacrifice involved because you are going to have to give up draft picks and capital to go get that.
Yep.
I think you do it. I think
I'm with you.
Point.
I think going from 17 to 8, 17 to 9, Falcons at 8 and the Bears at 9, I think that's doable. And it would be great if those guys slid a little bit. Run on quarterbacks happens in the top 5 to 6, and push those receivers.
Top 10, man.
Push those receivers down. I think that would be great. But I'm with you. I think you go up and get that alpha receiver that you've been looking for. Again, that's a draftable guy. He's going to be on a rookie contract, cost controlled, and you plug him into that essentially that 1A spot and let him develop and be that Trevor target that he has not had in his career. Trevor's had a bunch of number 2s in his career, and he's done, I think, as good as possible with those guys.
Jeez, you're just throwing all kinds of shots toward Christian Kirk. He didn't even
As
do
Christian
nothing
Kirk,
to
as
you,
Christian
man.
Kirk would say, he caught a stray.
Yeah.
So now Christian Kirk's a great number 2. I mean, he's great. He is a great number 2. But I mean, Christian Kirk's not going to be the alpha on a team with a Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, Christian Kirk's going to be that number 2 guy.
Sure. Look, like I said, back to the draft a little bit. They have some, like Ricky Pearsall. I know we got some Florida fans that'll watch this that are also Jaguars fans. Ricky Pearsall is going to be good.
He is.
He's going to be good. And you can probably get him in the second round.
Lad McConkey, too?
Lad McConkey's another
Maybe
guy.
a third rounder?
He's going to be good. No.
You think he's
he
for that?
could sneak into the late first or definitely second. No, if he's there in the third, you figure out how to get that deal done.
I
There's
did
no way.
I did see the Mel Kiper recent mock draft had Cooper DeJean from Iowa going 17 to the Jags.
He's insane.
I don't think that's happening.
Mel Kiper is insane.
I don't think that's happening.
No. Look, so when you start diving into the cornerback class, right? So it's not that I have anything against Cooper DeJean, but Ryan Nielsen needs a very particular skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wants to play. He's very, very open. We're going to play man defense. We're going to play man coverage. So the guys that lend themselves to that, like Cooper DeJean is probably going to be at his best in the NFL if he is in a defense where they play a mixture and some zone and some off man. Not press man. You're not going to get the best version. Like, I think Cooper DeJean has a chance to be a really good NFL player, maybe one of the best slot defenders, and maybe a safety or outside corner. I think he could play corner. I know people keep saying the league sees him as a safety, whatever. But I think he's going to be at his best in a defense, maybe more similar to what Mike Caldwell was running,
right?
Where they do run a lot more of those zone concepts. He has his eyes on the quarterback, and he's able to mirror because those are some of his best skills. You want to play man coverage and press man at that? That is a skill set because it's a difference playing at the line of scrimmage rather than off the line of scrimmage. Like Quinyon Mitchell played a ton of man coverage in college at Toledo. Most of it was off man.
Mm-hmm.
Press man is a whole different ballgame. Jalen Ramsey wanted to play press man because he could play press man, and when he was in Jacksonville was complaining that they wouldn't let him play press man.
Was pissed about them not running this press tight man. In the Patriots AFC Championship game, Jalen was pissed that he was not being able to play that press coverage on guys.
Right, and you have to. It's a certain type of guy, and that is a certain skill set. Ronald Darby, the second he signed here, he said, "They brought me here because I play man coverage. That's what I do. Like that's his skill set." He said, "I did it since college." Now he's a Jaguar. Very specific. We'll see what Tyson can do. He hasn't been asked to do it much in the NFL, but he should have the skill set to be able to do that. In the draft this year, you look at guys like Alabama ran a ton of press man. So Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid Mitchell, top of the list as far as press man metrics go. Kool-Aid is by far top of the list. Was listening to Malik Neighbors. He said Kool-Aid McKinstry was one of the toughest people he played against in college, too. So I'm on the Kool-Aid train, by the way. Been there for a while. I know the flavor. So those guys are press man corners. Another guy, Renardo Green, whatever his name is, from Florida State, press man all the way. Some of the highest metrics when you look at those analytics, and he's a guy that because of an injury, maybe his production slipped a little bit. Probably going to go in the second or third round. So you're going to be able. There are some corners that specialize in this skill because it is somewhat of a specialized skill.
Right.
You have to have the athletic ability, the athletic traits.
It's
to be
the
able to do it.
it's the reason that when Darius Williams came here, they tried him in the slot.
Didn't fit.
Darius wasn't a good guy in the slot, and corners, corners not just like you go out there and you run and shadow guy at all. I mean, there's a reason why Darius excelled at being that outside corner,
right,
and not a slot guy. And you think when they signed him, man, this guy's not doing well. What signed a guy he can't play? But we saw by midway of Darius' first season, he was a very good outside corner, and that to me that's an example of why you can't have the wrong personnel in the positions you want to try. Ryan Nielsen's going to run man coverage probably 80% of the time. Defense. I mean, he did that in Atlanta.
Exactly.
He'll probably do that in Jacksonville. You're going to need that, and the book on Cooper is that he's more conditioned to be that safety in the NFL, and he's not that.
So it's not going to happen.
He's not going to be that guy. And I don't think you're going to do that.
The one corner that we haven't talked a lot about at 17, and at one point it was there, and a lot of people kind of brushed it off. Nate Wiggins from Clemson.
Yeah.
He's a little bit on the smaller side, like kind of a light corner there, weight-wise, I mean. He's a guy who has the skill set that you want. But a lot of us kind of brushed it off as far as a fit for the Jaguars because they want those corners to be able to come up and tackle.
Mm-hmm.
The weight becomes an issue when you're coming up and trying to tackle running backs that are 220 pounds or whatever. But pro day, you know whose defensive back coach was running his pro day at Clemson, right? The Jaguars. So clearly they're getting a close look at this guy. So maybe he's not off the board for 17, not out of the running if they do sit there and take a corner. We'll see.
He'd be too high at 17, I think.
I don't know.
He'd trade back, and he'd trade back just like he did last year in that situation. Yeah. Trade back if at all possible.
He's a good player. Physically talented, cover guy. The only question mark is some of the weight. I mean, him being too light is a better weight concern than him being too heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so,
very true.
So there's something there. We'll see. Look, I'm a Kool-Aid McKinstry guy. I like Kool-Aid. I think ultimately, like in this defense, I like Kool-Aid to be. I know his. He has a high floor. You know what you're gonna get. Terrion Arnold, I think, is gonna be a good player. I'd prefer Kool-Aid though, especially for this defense. Just my opinion.
Also, a guy with medical issues too. We had the foot.
Hey, it was broke. It's healing.
The foot injury. So
he ran a 4.5 with a broke foot, and it's not a medical issue. He ran a 4.5 with a broke foot. How about that?
Yeah, Calvin Ridley had a foot issue that plagued him for a little bit of time. He mentioned that when he came here.
He also had a foot issue during training camp because they had the wrong size
wrong shoes on him. Yeah,
the wrong shoes. Come on now. Whatever. I don't know. We'll see. We're counting down to the draft. We're gonna have plenty of draft coverage coming. We'll do another one of these next week and kind of go through some of our favorite players in the draft as we kind of start to gear up towards things. On draft day, we'll have plenty of draft coverage. We'll be live over on News4JAGs.com and on News4JAGs 7 o'clock. So before the draft starts, make sure you turn on Channel 4 if you're in Jacksonville, or go to News4JAGs.com. You can watch all of our draft coverage there, and then we'll carry you through at 8 o'clock. We'll go online only. And we'll carry you up until 9 for sure. But if the draft is rolling by quick, we may stay on a little bit later and try and see if we can get to pick 17.
Man, 2 weeks from right now.
We're counting down.
Wow.
It's getting here quick. It's getting here quickly.
It comes, and we'll do our mock drafts and everything. Probably have a little difference of opinion there. But, man, draft season, and there's been no shortage of Jaguars news either.
Oh.
I mean, the Trevor contract watch is on. The franchise tag, free agency was active. I mean, we have had a active offseason for the Jaguars, and it needed to be an active offseason too. Needed to be an active offseason.
Busy time. Yeah, we'll do some mock drafts, and we'll get Alessandra in here, and at some point we'll do the full first round mock draft that I guess this will be the third annual News4JAGs full 32. We'll see. We'll get that done here in the next couple of weeks before the draft kicks off. So plenty of coverage coming your way. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.